Researcher notes.
Our world is full of amazing and inexplicable phenomena that spark the imagination and leave an indelible mark on memory. I want to share with you a special story that happened to me and my 3-year-old granddaughter. Nights can be different, calm and restless, peaceful and uneasy. One such night I will remember forever. My granddaughter was used to falling asleep next to me, and the evening of that day was no exception. We made ourselves comfortable on the wide bed, covered ourselves with a warm blanket, and drifted off to sleep. But suddenly, the silence was broken by the girl's voice. Calmly, but insistently, she whispered, "Grandma, where is Lena?" That is my name, and the girl often calls me that. I responded to her, soothing her with my voice. "Here I am, your Grandma Lena. Sleep peacefully." But my granddaughter did not calm down. She propped herself up on her elbows, looked at me with an attentive gaze, and repeated, "Call, Lena." Her reaction seemed strange and intriguing to me. The insistence and seriousness in her eyes indicated that the girl was clearly awake and aware of what was happening. For several minutes, I tried to convince her that she was sleeping next to me, but my granddaughter continued to be persistent. To resolve this mysterious situation, I got out of bed, left the bedroom, and returned again, lying down next to my child. Only after that did the procedure succeed. My granddaughter sighed contentedly and fell back into a deep sleep. This episode left me with a lot of questions. It is difficult to call it sleepwalking, as my granddaughter was engaging in a conversation consciously and clearly expressing her wishes. It left the impression that the girl perceived me as a stranger, despite our closeness and daily communication. It seems that the child's psyche sometimes creates amazing mysteries that can puzzle adults and make them think about the nature of sleep and the subconscious. Time passes. My granddaughter grows older, but that night has remained in my memory forever as an example of something greater than a simple nighttime awakening. Sometimes it seems that such events serve as a kind of message.
Every person's life consists of many stories, interesting and exciting, touching and unforgettable. One feels the desire to share their observations, as each story contains lessons and wisdom. Today, I will tell you one of those stories that happened to me recently. For 33 years, I had lived in a small but cozy apartment that had witnessed many significant events in my life. However, the time for change had come, and I decided to move to a more comfortable home. While preparing for the move, I sat in my old room, going through pleasant memories and thinking about how wonderful it had been there. Suddenly, an idea came to me to address the owner of the apartment, whom I imagined as a kind guardian spirit who had accompanied me for many years. I loudly spoke the phrase, "House spirit, come with me to the new apartment." Then the moving hassle began. Packing things, arranging documents, transporting furniture. Soon the process was over, and I found myself in a new home with my beloved cat, whom I had raised from infancy and treated like a third child. A close relationship based on understanding and trust developed between us. Soon my daughter came to me with a request to keep her little Pomeranian at my place during her vacation so as not to take the dog on the trip. The decision was made quickly, and the little fluffy ball settled into my new residence. The little dog had a lively nature, reacting sensitively to any changes in the environment. This curious creature loved exploring the space and responding to sounds and movements outside the apartment. Once, while sitting in the kitchen, I heard energetic play and commotion in the bedroom. Peeking in, I saw a funny sight. The dog was running around happily, as if playing with an invisible force. The puppy was whining excitedly, trying to catch an imaginary prey, jumping and spinning on its hind legs, stretching for invisible objects suspended in the air. Watching such behavior was both amusing and strange at the same time. I asked, "Athena, who are you playing with?" The little dog fell silent, froze, and stared into the air, as if completely puzzled by the game. Such a surprise from a living creature sparked both my curiosity and amusement, but overall, I took the episode lightly, considering it an amusing oddity. However, a few days later, a second, much more vivid event occurred, this time involving my cat. It was late in the evening when I was sound asleep in my warm bed. The kitty woke up earlier than usual and, coming close to my face, nuzzled her cold little nose right against my lips. Awakened by the gentle touch, I noticed that the animal was heading toward the door, signaling that she wanted to go outside for a walk in the fresh air. After letting her out, I lay back down, anticipating a sweet dream, but soon I felt the familiar presence of the cat at my feet. Waking up, I saw the cat in her usual spot, but realized that it was an illusion. I had already let her out earlier. Startled, I jumped up, ran out to the landing, and saw the cat sitting right in front of the closed door, discontentedly purring and looking at me reproachfully. I immediately remembered my appeal to the house spirit, thinking that perhaps he had heard my request and helped my pet return to the house. I slept through the rest of the night poorly, constantly thinking about what had happened. In the morning, I set out a treat for the invisible helper, wishing for him to remain unnoticed and not disturb me unnecessarily. Such stories remind us of the existence of a world hidden from ordinary eyes, fill life with magical experiences, and teach us to recognize the signs sent from above.
Loss of belongings is a fairly common phenomenon, and it is often associated with the influence of lower-order beings, known among esotericists as non-organic entities. Similar situations have happened to me more than once. One morning, while preparing to go on a trip to Crimea, I discovered that the vinaigrette I had prepared the day before had disappeared. My first suspicion fell on my husband. However, he confidently stated that he had not eaten the salad, and even if he had, he would not have hidden it. Another incident involved my gold jewellery, a stud earring, whose clasp accidentally fell off. The sense of a sinister presence made me alert, but it was only about a year later that the item was found again, coinciding with the period when the planet Mercury was in retrograde motion. At that time, a female psychic was working with me, helping me deal with health issues. Among my friends, there are quite a few who are fascinated by the study of the subtle world and practices aimed at interacting with it. Once we gathered a large group to celebrate the festival of life at a country cottage. During the rest, my husband briefly left the room to go outside, and soon it turned out that one of his slippers was missing. Despite thorough searches, the slipper returned exactly a week later, as if it had been deliberately placed back in a spot that no one had paid attention to before. However, a similar situation with the loss of medicine belonging to my sick friend was different. The tube of medicine mysteriously disappeared immediately after the guest's arrival and remained lost until his departure a whole week later. This suggests that beyond the visible circumstances, there exists something hidden that constantly coexists with us. Carlos Castaneda referred to such entities as inorganic beings, emphasizing the aggressive nature of the universe. Personally, I am more inclined toward this perception of reality, free from religious context. The laws of the cosmos are objective and independent of human notions, yet most people seek to see in them only opportunities for personal gain. In ancient times, many magicians were able to interact with such entities, directing their power to achieve various goals and rituals. This is an unusual story about encounters with doppelgangers, but in a completely unexpected sense. My school friendship began with a boy named Ivan Dubinin, *, quite attractive in appearance and pleasant in communication. This young man possessed a rare combination of qualities: charming, well-mannered, a diligent student, and an excellent performer in his subjects. He was the first to inspire me to write a romantically mysterious story about horses, which I loved so much in childhood. It would seem that I always considered myself the most capable student, but after meeting Vanya, I had to admit that he surpassed me intellectually. Even despite my own excellent grades, I admired the achievements of this young man. In the second grade, once, when I went with my mother to a cultural event, I really wanted to introduce her to my favorite classmate. "Look, Mummy, this is Ivan. What a wonderful guy." However, my mother reacted coldly and reservedly. "Just an ordinary boy." Apparently, my excessive admiration for Ivan seemed overly emotional, especially for a young schoolchild, and my mother wanted to temper my enthusiasm. Soon, in the 5th grade, fate separated our paths, and Ivan moved to live in another city. However, the memory of him remained bright and warm. Years later, I grew up, leaving the quiet town for a large metropolis, and got a job at a big company. There I met a colleague whose first and last name sounded almost exactly the same: Ivan Dubov. The resemblance continued externally, the same astrological sign, yet the inner nature turned out to be completely opposite. This new Ivan turned out to be a former professional athlete, physically powerful, but endowed with a unique character. A left-hander with unconventional thinking, who at one time had to repeat a grade in school, endured unsuccessful attempts to retrain his left hand to write with his right, and narrowly avoided being sent to a specialized educational institution. Ivan Dubov seemed at once rough and kind, attractive in his strangeness and unpredictability. We became friends quickly, spending a lot of time together, taking evening walks and sharing personal secrets. Amazingly, the new acquaintance, upon hearing about an old friendship with someone who had the same first and last name, seriously asked, "What if that was me?" Of course, such a possibility was unlikely, but his sincere concern about the matter brought a smile. Despite his eccentricity, he didn't seem to be an underdeveloped person at all. On the contrary, there was something special inside him, sometimes inexplicable. After we parted for good, I experienced a series of mystical moments. It seemed that the objects around me came to life, as if responding to our farewell. Later, I learned an interesting fact. My new colleague had a younger sister named Lydia, and my old classmate now lives in a city with the same name, Lydia. Both Ivans are now happy. Each remains dear to my heart. The appearance of each evokes a sense of deep admiration. Both surnames are phonetically similar. Both belong to the same zodiac sign. Yet the first was extremely clever, while the second had a unique way of perceiving the world, being the complete opposite of the first.